Good afternoon and welcome to today's webinar. My name is Greg Lockwood and I'm Stakeholder Coordinator at the BC Centre for Employment Excellence. For those of you who are not familiar with the Centre, it was created in 2012 with funding from the provincial and federal governments to act as a research and knowledge sharing organization for BC employment service providers and employers. The Centre's mandate is not only to do innovative research, but also to find ways to share best practices with BC practitioners and employers and better integrate evidence into practice. We created this webinar series as a way to reach out and connect with practitioners. Through this series, we have highlighted new research by the Centre, but are also tapping into the knowledge and expertise within the employment services community. You are invited to view the video recordings of previous webinars that we have posted on our website. Today's presentation by guest presenters from Diversity Community Resources Society explores strategies to support the economic integration of refugees. Over many decades, Canada has welcomed countless displaced and persecuted people in need of protection and security, and provided them with an opportunity to rebuild their lives. In late 2015 and early 2016 alone, Canada welcomed about 25,000 Syrian refugees. Many refugees encounter issues around cultural adaptation, labor market integration, and English language proficiency. Are we ready to support their journey to economic independence in their new country? This webinar is an opportunity to look at what has worked before, as well as explore strategies that will lead to meaningful economic integration of refugees. So today we have two speakers joining us from Surrey. Rupinder Malhotra was a high school teacher in India before she moved to Canada. With a bachelor's degree in math and education, she has always been interested in the service industry because of her passion to guide and connect people to a better future. After working in customer service, Rupinder reinvented her career in reception administration and started working as a program assistant at Diversity in 2008. There, Rupinder discovered her true career goal of helping and empowering new immigrants with career challenges. Rupinder soon completed the Career Development Practitioner Program at Douglas College and started working as an employment counselor in 2013. Our second presenter, Bidya Singh, immigrated to Canada from Fiji Islands in 1998, where she had 2 years of high school teaching experience and several years of experience working on an international airline. Upon arriving in Canada, Bidya was faced with the same hurdles as any other immigrant. After completing a job search program at Diversity, she started her first job as a volunteer in the ELSA program, which led to an administrative assistant position in the employment department. Over the last 15 years, she has worked in a variety of programs in various positions, including career employment counselor, facilitator, administrator, and program coordinator. Currently, she is employed as a case manager at a WorkBC Employment Services Centre. Bidya holds a Bachelor of Arts, a Diploma in Education, and CDP certificate. She's also a certified MBTI and Personality Dimension Facilitator. Today's presentation will last about 45 minutes. You are encouraged to submit questions and comments to Rupinder and Bidya in the questions feature of your panel. Remote card or live closed captioning is now available during the Centre's webinars. You can find the link in the reminder email that we sent out yesterday and as well as this morning. And just a note about the video that we'll be showing early on in the presentation. Hopefully it will be compatible for most of you, but some of you that are using Mac computers may not be able to see the video, only hear it. So we just want to make that note before we start the video. So now it is my pleasure to hand over the microphone and screen to Rupinder and Bidya.
I would like to welcome all the attendees for taking the time to attend this webinar. Before we start with our presentation today, I would like to tell a little bit about our organization, Diversity Community Resources Society. To start with, I would just read our mission statement, as you can see on your screen right now. We build and strengthen diverse communities by delivering the broadest range of services that embrace cultural inclusiveness, and that celebrate the strengths found in our differences. Diversity has been in the community for more than 37 years, working for immigrant population in providing services that includes settlement programs, family counseling, employment programs, and link services, which previously known as ELSA. To know more about diversity, I encourage everyone to please visit our website at www.dcrs.ca. So today we're going to talk about strategies to support refugees, economic integration. And I would actually like to ask how many of you in the audience are providing services to the refugees? I'm not sure if I will be able to see the answer, but if I would really appreciate if you can just maybe type in and let us know that we have people who are helping refugees with us right now. So who are refugees? To give you a better idea of who refugees are and the circumstances that they're coming from, we're going to show you a small video from United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, which is also known as UNHCR. And you can just give us a few seconds to load this video on our screen as well.
Rupinder and Bidya, we're just having trouble loading the video, so we'll try to find a time later on in the presentation to do that. So we'll just ask you to go ahead with the next slide. Sorry about that, everyone. Okay.
No problem. All right, so I guess I think you will all have the access to the presentation later on, and I will actually encourage you all to please listen to the or watch the video that's going to be on the presentation.
Rupinder, we've just found the link for the video. I just had to switch the screen back to our screen,
great.
So we'll show that right now.
That's great.
Okay.
All right. Thank you so much, Greg. So that was the video by UNHCR, which is also called United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees. Now I want you to have a look at the next slide that we have on the screen right now. The purpose of showing you this picture is to tell you the different ways of looking at things. Now, if you can look at the picture, some people might call it a yard work, and some would call it gardening. So there are different names and different terminologies used for refugees, or should we just call them migrants? And as you can see on the screen, the different terminologies that we're listening these days about refugees on refugees. They are refugee claimants, protected person, conventional refugees. They're also government-assisted refugees. There are privately sponsored refugees, and then we have permanent residents as well. And before we discuss the different strategies, we want to tell you today why are they specified and classed this way, so that we have a better understanding of different types of refugee status in Canada. Now, my partner Vidya will take over from here and explain you the refugee process in Canada.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Vidya Singh, and I am going to take it off from Rupinder. The refugee screening process. If you look at the next screen, it talks about the process. So to come to Canada as a refugee, you must be referred by the United Nations Refugee Agency or another designated referral organization, or you could be sponsored by a private sponsorship group. You cannot apply directly for resettlement to Canada at any embassy or a visa office. So as you can see that map, refugee, and then they're classified under 3 different classes: Convention Refugee Board class, refugee claimant, and country of asylum class. And under the Convention Refugee Board class, we have government assisted refugees and private sponsored refugees, and then refugees sponsored by religious groups. A group of 5 people get together and they can sponsor someone. And country of asylum class, same thing, government assisted refugees, private sponsored refugees, and then sponsored by religious groups or a group of 5 people. So typically a person seeking asylum here needs to pass through several layers of approval and screening, which includes running the refugees files against databases maintained by the Canada Border Services Agency, Interpol, Canadian Security Intelligence Service, and similar databases in allied countries. So we may also note that refugees seeking protection in Canada are not threats to security. They are seeking security and protection from threats to their own lives. So it is far more difficult to enter Canada as a refugee than as a visitor, because the refugee determination process involves security checks, as mentioned earlier, including fingerprinting and interviews. So it is not likely that a person intending to commit a violent act would expose themselves to such detailed examinations. The Immigration and Refugee Protection Act excludes refugee claimants if they are found to be inadmissible on the basis of security, serious criminality, organized criminality, or human rights violations. Refugees come to Canada in different ways, but no matter the category, refugees receive very limited income assistance from the government. Refugee claimants and refugees recognized by the Immigration and Refugee Board receive no special income assistance. They may, depending on provincial regulations, be entitled to social assistance like other residents. Privately sponsored refugees are not entitled to government assistance, including provincial assistance, during the period of their sponsorship, usually for a period of a year after arrival in Canada. Their income support must be provided by their sponsors or the volunteer community groups. The government-assisted refugees have access to financial assistance from the federal government through the Resettlement Assistance Program. This financial assistance is generally for 1 year maximum and is received only if they do not have their own financial resources or income. And privately sponsored refugees are not entitled to government assistance, as I said earlier. Their income support must be provided by their sponsors. The privately sponsored refugees' family to Canada make important contributions to Canadian society, both economically and socially. Under the Convention refugee, one must be in this class if they are outside their home country and cannot return there due to a well-founded fear of persecution based on race, religion, political opinion, nationality, or membership in a particular social group, such as women or people with a particular sexual orientation. So those are the terminologies that we mostly use: protected refugee, which is classed as protected persons, so Immigration and Refugee Board of Canada and Citizenship and Immigration Canada decide who is a protected person. If the IRB determined you to be a person in need of protection or a convention refugee, or if you receive a positive decision on your pre-removal risk assessment from CIC, you are a protected person and apply for permanent residence with this application. And the convention refugee are people who are outside their home country or a country where they normally live and who are unwilling to return because of a well-founded fear of persecution based on race, religion, political opinion, nationality, or membership in a particular social group, such as women or people of a particular sexual orientation. And then after your refugee status is granted, then a permanent resident can be applied for, and a permanent resident is a person who can remain in Canada permanently but does not have a Canadian citizen. So now I will hand over to Rupinder, who will explain the resettlement process in Canada.
All right, so let's go to the resettlement process in Canada. Once the refugees arrive in Canada, that's when the resettlement process begins. And there are three ways of resettling refugees in Canada. You can be as a government-assisted refugee, as Vidya was explaining to you before. These refugees, the refugees classed under this category, are supported by the federal government for up to 1 year. And after that, they're on their own. Some of them, with multiple barriers, are further supported by provincial government until they are employed. And by support by provincial government, we mean people on income assistance. Then the second way is the privately sponsored refugees. These refugees are supported by their sponsors for up to 1 year. Government does not take any financial responsibility for them. And the last category is the blended visa office refugees. And these are the ones who are neither sponsored by government nor by any private group. In this case, the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, they match them with a private sponsor in Canada, who then takes their financial responsibility for up to 6 months. And they're also obliged to provide emotional as well as social support, but not just for 6 months, for up to 1 year. Now let's talk about the barriers faced by these refugees. I'm assuming we all are aware of all possible barriers faced by migrants, or should we call them immigrants, who come to Canada. Most of us are working with either immigrant population or other specialized group. But being refugees, their list of barriers is never ending. The trauma, the violence, and the displacement has not only left them with psychological effects, but also affected them socially. So there are a list of barriers you can see on the screen, and I'm just going to touch a few of them. Some of the examples of psychological effects on refugees are loss and grief, the ongoing concern for family and friends, isolation from larger support structures, yearning for their homeland, the loss of identity, and then on top of that, there's discrimination as well. Along with these, they also have difficulties accessing employment, housing, and even health services. There's loss of educational opportunities because of lack of finance or lack of language competences we all are aware of. There's loss of community and family networks for them. And above all, they're overwhelmed with host communities, which we often call as culture shock. Now, in order for us to further understand their needs, their barriers, and some of the strategies, we will now share some real client stories with you all. And my partner, Bidya, will start with the first story.
So we're going to tell these stories in bits and pieces. Whenever you look at a client who has been a refugee in Canada, what you can see on the screen are some of the barriers they face, which could be social dislocation, physical separation, employment, social support, proficiency in English, policy and data issues, and the strategies that can be employed to make their integration easier in the community. It's discussing options to meet needs. Employment could be one, career planning, and then social capital. They also need trauma and resettlement counseling, strong ethnic community associations, labor market participation, and accommodation. So here's a story about Isaac. Isaac came into Canada as a refugee claimant from Rwanda. He lived on the streets of Vancouver. His luggage was stolen upon arrival to Canada from the airport, and he was picked up by Canadian Border Security as he could not provide correct documentations. He was put in jail for more than a month and was able to get out with the help of a lawyer. A Good Samaritan helped him and gave him space in his house to stay. He helped him with available resources in the community and connected him to the Skills Link program for youth, also known as Future Leaders Program at Diversity. There aren't many people residing in Surrey from Rwanda community, so social isolation was a big factor for Isaac. The Future Leaders Program addressed his needs and provided him with social capital. He made lots of friends in the class and gained self-confidence. He established an employment goal for himself and even found opportunities to explore his childhood interest that was long lost during his ordeal. Today, he is at Douglas College, gaining credits to enter a medical field. He is also working as a dance instructor, earning $50 an hour in a renowned dance school in Vancouver, which is next on our screen. You can see Isaac on this team of dance instructors. He's a hip-hop dance instructor. So the next story will be shared with you by Rupinder. I hand over the screen to Rupinder.
Thank you, Bidya. So our second story is about our client named Hasim. As you can see on the screen, same barriers, the needs, and the strategies that we're going to talk about in a few minutes. So he came in as a government-assisted refugee, originally from Burma, but he lived on the refugee camps for a long time before he came to Canada. It was a big family. He came with his family with 5 kids, and then 2 more were born in Canada. Finding his first job in Canada was a big step. He initially started with our settlement programs, where he got access to many internal programs that provided him with community resources and a lot of information. The whole family was actually supported by diversity staff in various capacities, including employment, family counseling programs that included children who witnessed trauma, clinical counseling, etc. The support provided his whole family with tools and resources in smooth integration within Canadian community. And we would actually like to share that If you can look at the next slide, I'm actually showing you a picture of his son, Ali Zohar. You guys can actually Google his name as well, and then it will give you information on what he's doing right now. And we're very, very proud to share that his son is now a team member of Junior Whitecap team in Vancouver. And we just recently came to know that he's been selected to play for the Junior World Cup. Now, this is a huge achievement, not only for the family, but also for diversity. Vidya will conclude from here now.
So the next slide talks about the desirable strategies. So the whole point of discussing these strategies is to tell that there isn't any specific list of strategies in dealing with the refugee population. It is individual based, and the support should be provided as per individual need. As you may see on the screen, everyone needs settlement and integration, social capital, including strong ethnic community support, and familiarization with local culture. The next screen shows you the comparison between regular immigrants and refugee population. And if you can see the stats, it shows that refugees contributed more towards Canadian economy as compared to all immigrants. And the next screen shows about cooperative assets, to the next item. So what happens is the communities come together and they want because they want to be productive, and so they form cooperative associations and they work together, and this helps actually in the financial assets, so they can have income from this productive activity, regular inflows of money from government transfers, family gifts in kind, credit rating, access to credit. They also gain social assets, like by forming a corporation. They can network, they get connected to the whole society, they get family support, they make friends, relationships of trust, exchanges, partnership and collaborations, and political participation. They also gain human assets, which are like their own skills, or they enhance their skills, knowledge, ability, good health, employability and earning, and then they gain leadership skills as well. They also gain physical assets, child elder care, secure shelter, information, basic consumer needs, example, local grocery store, affordable transportation, tools and equipment. And personal assets, of course, they gain motivation, self-esteem, self-confidence, self-perception, emotional well-being. They become assertive, and they also develop spiritually. So the next thing on our screen is an example of a corporation. It's Afghani Women Sewing and Crafts Cooperative, and this provides a source of income and encouragement for women, economic empowerment. They reduce isolation in the Afghan community. They build bridges between the Afghan community and the wider community, and they test new ways to address social and economic needs of immigrant women.
So now we're going to start with the question and answer session. So if you guys have any questions or any concerns about the presentation, our email addresses are showing up on the screen right now. You're more than welcome to send us any queries.
Okay, thank you, Rupinder and Vidya. We haven't had a lot of questions come in so far, so I'm going to encourage everyone to submit those questions through the questions box. We did have one question come in earlier that you might be able to help with. Someone was asking about Syrian refugees specifically, and if there were any practitioners or counselors that you're aware of with in-depth knowledge of Syrian culture, in particular around gender issues. So there's a participant who asked that question, is wondering if anyone out there, or if maybe you and Vidya and Rupinder know of any resources or any contacts for specifically that culture.
I
Go ahead.
I think most of the employment centers have hired Arabic-speaking case managers to handle the Syrian refugees right now. We at Diversity have also hired Arabic-speaking counselors and settlement workers to help Syrian refugees. Either they need settlement services, trauma counseling, or even employment programs.
Okay, so I suppose, and I'm sure it varies from community to community, so I'm not sure where this individual is located, but you mentioned the Work BC centers. Many of them have Arabic-speaking practitioners, so that's good to know. Okay.
And as I was telling before, I encourage everybody to please visit our website. There's a lot of information about all the services provided at Diversity. And as Vidya was saying, that we do have Arabic-specific case managers, guided pathway coach. And they have these, I would actually encourage them to email this question to either one of us, and we can connect them to the right person at Diversity who can give them information about what they're asking for.
Yeah, and it's important to emphasize that our audience, we have participants from across the province. So, yeah, so we've got certainly a lot of folks that are based in the Lower Mainland, but we've got folks outside the Lower Mainland as well. Okay, is there any, if you have any other questions, as you can see, Bidya and Rupinder's email addresses are there. Please feel free to review the blog post and the video again. And post questions on our website. We'll post the video within the next week or so. I don't see any more questions coming in. I see one question has just come in about reviewing the 5 assets from the previous slide. So this person has just maybe asked to summarize what those are again. So could you just return to the last slide and maybe give a really brief overview again of those cooperative assets and how that works?
Well, this we were talking about how when the refugees get together and they form a cooperative. That's the only one that we so far know of. The one that was on the following slide, the Afghan Women Sewing and Crafts Cooperative. This was actually put together by ISS, so we're just encouraging that if this kind of community work is done together, we bring together refugees and help them develop their skills, either whatever it could be. It brings, that's how it helps their corporate assets. They develop more assets.
Yeah, and I think Vidya was also saying that there's no specific strategy in dealing with refugee population. It's individual based on their needs, and they should be provided support as per individual needs. And this is just a general example of by setting up a cooperative groups how they can be supported. So okay. I guess that should answer the question that we just been asked.
Okay, thank you. And so another question, final question that's come in is someone saying they don't have access to on-site coaches in their town, and they're wondering if translators are attending and going with participants or new job.
Can you repeat that? I couldn't hear you.
Okay, so we have an individual saying that they don't have access to an on-site coach in their town, okay. And they're wondering if translators are attending with participants as they start new positions. They're saying that the language dynamic seems to be one of the biggest challenges that they face.
Depending on the towns that they're living in, I know that there are interpreters available, Arabic interpreters available, pretty much supporting all these agencies. Diversity itself has a department that provides more than 100 interpreters in different languages to the community services. So I guess they just have to access the resources in their town and see if there's any agency providing services for interpreters.
Okay. Great. Well, that it looks like that wraps up the question and answer period. So I just want to thank Rupinder and Bidya again for their presentation today, and of course, thanks to everyone for attending as well. As I mentioned, the session was recorded, and we will post the video of the presentation along with the closed captioning on our website, and we'll send you the link in an email within the next week or so. As always, we welcome your input and feedback. So when you leave the webinar, you'll be asked to complete a short survey. We would appreciate it if you took a minute or two to share your thoughts, because it will help us immensely in planning future events. We would also appreciate any suggestions you have for future webinar topics. So I'm just going to show the next webinar that we're going to be hosting in June. It's on June 23rd, and it's on the topic of essential skills for job seekers. So please keep an eye on the follow-up email to this webinar, as well as our newsletter for more information and the registration link. So again, that ends our webinar for today. On behalf of our presenters and my colleagues here at the center, thanks so much for participating in today's discussion, and have a great afternoon.